The morning air in odd. West Virginia hung heavy with that slow, mountain stillness, the kind that carries every sound for miles. The dogs barked in the distance. The creek whispered somewhere behind the pines, and inside the Whittaker home, Betty sat hunched over a folded piece of paper on the kitchen table. The paper was wrinkled at the edges, its black ink blurred slightly where her fingers had pressed too hard. Larry sat across from her, quiet, watching her lips move as she read each line aloud for the fifth time. "It says 30 days," she murmured, her voice trembling slightly. "30 days, Larry. They said 30 days to fix the septic or we gotta go." Larry tilted his head, squinting as if trying to make sense of the words that had already changed their lives. 30, he repeated. "That ain't long." "No," Betty said. "It sure ain't." The letter had come from the state office the day before, a notice of violation from Adult Protective Services tied to a report about the condition of their property. The paper listed a series of issues: sanitation, structural safety, environmental hazards. But the one that stuck out in bold type was the septic system. It wasn't just a fine. It was an ultimatum. Failure to comply, the letter read, will result in removal of residents and potential placement in state housing. Betty had stared at that sentence so long, she could recite it by heart. Now, as she sat there, her hands trembling, the kitchen filled with the smell of coffee gone cold and the low hum of the refrigerator that never quite kept things cold enough. Larry shifted in his chair. "Betty, you talked to him?" She nodded slowly. "I tried. Called down to the number they gave me. Got some lady who said it's already filed. She said if we can show proof of repair, they'll extend the deadline. But repairs like that? Larry, that's thousands of dollars. We don't even have enough for propane next month." Larry looked down, rubbing his calloused hands together. "Can't Patrick help?" Betty flinched slightly at the name. Patrick had once been their lifeline, the man with the camera, the GoFundMe, the promises of help. But now his name brought tension. "He can't be around us," she said, her tone sharp. "State said no contact while the case is open." Larry nodded slowly. "But he was trying to help before." "Yeah," she muttered. "Before everything went to hell." There was silence, the kind that seemed to echo through the small house, bouncing between the thin walls and the memories they held. Betty reached up, rubbing her temple. "We've been through a lot, Larry," she said softly. "But I don't know if we can make it through this." Larry leaned forward. "We ain't leaving here." Betty looked up. "You think the state's going to listen to that?" He shrugged. "They can take their papers and shove him. This is our home." But the thing about state orders is that they don't care about sentiment. They don't bend for stubbornness. And for the first time, Betty felt something she hadn't in a long time. Helpless. Later that day, the neighbor, an older woman named Clara, came by, her hair tied up in a scarf and her boots still muddy from the road. She carried a small grocery bag filled with canned soup and a loaf of bread. "Heard about the letter," Clara said, setting the bag on the counter. "Everybody's talking about it." Betty gave her a look that could freeze water. "Ain't nobody's business." Clara nodded. "You're right. It ain't. But folks are worried, Betty. They saying the county might condemn the place if it don't get fixed." Betty sighed. "They can't just do that, can they? This house has been here longer than any of them been working for the state." Clara hesitated. "They can. If they say it's unsafe, they can." Betty's hand gripped the edge of the table. "Unsafe? This house raised us, fed us, kept us warm in the winter. Ain't unsafe. Just old." Clara spoke gently. "Old and broken ain't the same thing, Betty. You know that." For a long moment, neither of them said anything. The only sound was the creaking of the floorboards beneath Larry's boots as he shifted in the doorway. By evening, the light was fading. Betty sat on the porch, her elbows resting on her knees, the letter still in her hand. Larry stood beside her, arms crossed, looking out over the narrow dirt road that curved down toward the main highway. You think they'll really come? Larry asked. Betty didn't answer right away. They always do, she said finally. They show up when it's too late. Larry frowned. Ain't fair. Nothing ever is, she replied. A truck rolled by, the driver waving briefly before disappearing around the bend. Betty watched the dust trail rise and settle again. You remember when Patrick brought that man from Georgia here? Said he was going to help get us a new septic, maybe even fix the roof? Larry nodded. He had that camera. Kept asking questions. Yeah. Said he was making a video. Said folks were going to see it and send help. They did, didn't they? Betty shook her head slowly. Some did, but not like we thought. People sent money, yeah, but it never made it here, Larry. Not all of it, anyway. Some folks out there took advantage of us. Used our name. Sold our story. Larry's eyes narrowed. You tell the police? Didn't do no good, Betty said. They said it's under investigation. That's what they always say. She leaned back in her chair, staring up at the sky, turning from blue to gray. Now we got 30 days to fix something we didn't break. 30 days to come up with money we ain't got. Larry rubbed his chin. Maybe that man from a church could help. The one who brought the blankets last winter. Betty thought for a moment. Maybe, but that's a skin too much. Everybody's already done enough. Larry looked over at her. You ain't the skin type, Betty. Never have been. But maybe now's the time. She sighed. I don't know. Pride don't fix septic tanks. That night, the rain came. Heavy, steady, relentless. The roof leaked again. Same spot as before, right over the kitchen light. Betty placed a pot beneath it and sat in silence. The rhythmic ping of water echoing through the dark. Larry was asleep in the next room, his snores muffled under the hum of the old box fan. Betty unfolded the letter one more time, tracing the official seal at the top. She whispered the words under her breath, as if saying them aloud might somehow make them less real. 30 days to comply. Her eyes burned. She didn't cry easily, hadn't in years, but something about this felt different. It wasn't just about the septic. It was about everything that came before it. The judgment, the documentaries, the endless cycle of pity and curiosity that had turned her family into something less than human in the eyes of the world. And now the state had given her a deadline. Not to fix a pipe or dig a trench, but to save her family's home. Outside, lightning flashed across the ridge, illuminating the crooked fence, the broken swing, the sagging roof. Betty watched the shadows dance on the wall and thought about all the strangers who had once promised help and all the ones who had turned their backs. 30 days, she whispered again. The number echoed in her head like a clock ticking down, not just to eviction, but to the end of everything she'd fought to hold together. As the thunder rolled across the hills, Betty folded the letter neatly, slid it under a chipped ceramic mug on the table, and stared out the window. Tomorrow, she said softly to herself, tomorrow, we start fighting again. Do you believe the Whittakers can pull through this deadline? Or has the system already failed them long before this notice arrived? Comment below with your thoughts and prayers for Betty and Larry as their 30 days begin. The morning after the rainstorm, Betty woke to the sound of dripping water. The old coffee pot under the leak was half full, the steady rhythm of the drops marking time like a metronome. For a moment, she just sat there at the kitchen table, staring at it. The house smelled faintly of wet wood and damp soil. Outside, fog clung to the hills like a heavy blanket. Larry was already awake, standing near the window with his hands tucked into his jacket pockets. He turned when she stirred. Didn't sleep much, he said. Betty rubbed her eyes. Ain't much to sleep about right now. Larry nodded toward the folded letter on the table. That paper's going to kill us faster than the rain will. Betty gave a tired smile. It sure feels like it. They both knew the situation was bad, worse than they were letting themselves admit. The state had given them exactly 30 days to fix the septic system and show proof of repairs. Betty had already called 3 different contractors, but none of them were willing to take on a job that big without an upfront payment. The cheapest quote she'd gotten was $5,200, more than she made in 6 months. The Whittakers didn't have savings. What they had was survival. Old furniture, a couple of government checks, and a house held together by decades of patchwork fixes. By mid-morning, Betty had her notepad out. She'd written a list of names, local churches, social services, even a nonprofit out of Beckley she'd heard about from the neighbor, Clara. She wasn't used to asking for help, but desperate times don't care much about pride. She dialed the first number, a church office. After a short pause, a woman answered, her voice polite but brisk. "Good morning, this is St. Mary's Outreach." "Yes, ma'am," Betty said. "My name's Betty Whittaker. I'm calling because me and my brother got a letter from the state. We got 30 days to fix our septic tank and—" The woman cut in softly. "Ma'am, are you located in Odd?" "Yes, ma'am." "Oh, I see. Well, unfortunately, we don't have any current programs for that kind of repair. We can help with food or clothing, though." Betty's heart sank. "Thank you anyway," she said. She tried another church. Same answer. Then another. Same response. Polite voices, sympathetic tones, but no one with the resources she needed. When she hung up the last call, she slammed the phone down harder than she meant to. "Nobody wants to help till it's too late," she muttered. Larry looked up from his chair. "They said no. They all said no," she replied. "Food and clothes. Always food and clothes. What good's food if we ain't got a place to eat it?" Larry didn't answer. He just looked down at his hands again, rubbing them together slowly. Around noon, Clara showed up again, this time with a folded newspaper under her arm. "I heard from somebody down at the market," she said as she stepped inside. "They said the county inspector might be back up here this week to check the place again." Betty frowned. "Already? They just sent the letter." "I know, but once that notice goes out, they move fast. They'll want to see if you're making progress." Betty groaned. "Progress? What progress can we make without money?" Clara hesitated. "That's why I came. There's a number in the paper for a legal aid office in Beckley. They help low-income families deal with housing stuff. Maybe they can stall the order, give you more time." Betty grabbed the paper, scanning it. "You think they'd even talk to us?" "Can't hurt to try," Clara said. So Betty called. This time, she got through to a young man named Marcus. He sounded professional, maybe mid-20s, with that calm, practiced tone of someone used to bad news. "Mrs. Whittaker," he said, "I understand your situation. Unfortunately, when it comes to state-issued deadlines, it's hard to overturn the order without evidence of progress. But if we can prove financial hardship and show an active plan to resolve the issue, the county may grant an extension." "An extension?" Betty repeated. "How long?" "Usually 15 to 30 days. Betty's grip tightened on the phone. "That's something, I guess." Marcus continued. "We need to file a hardship appeal. I can email or mail you the paperwork." "Mail," Betty said quickly. "We don't have internet." "Understood," he replied. "I'll send out today." And Mrs. Whittaker, "Yes. Don't give up. I know it's hard, but you'd be surprised how many people make it through these kinds of cases. You just have to show you're trying." For the first time all day, Betty smiled, faint but real. "Thank you, son." When she hung up, Larry asked, "Good news?" "Better than nothing," she said. "We might get more time." Later that afternoon, Betty walked the property with Larry. The rain had left the ground soft, the grass squishing under their boots. Near the back of the house, the septic area looked worse than she remembered. Puddles of murky water, a faint smell in the air. "This is what they talking about," she said quietly. "See how it's overflowing into the yard? They think it's dangerous." Larry scratched his head. "Don't smell good, that's for sure." "It's been like that for years," she said. "We just kept putting lime down." Never had no problem till now. Larry looked around. Guess the wrong person finally saw it. Betty knelt down, poking the soft soil with a stick. We could dig it up ourselves, she said suddenly. Maybe patch the pipe. Make it look like we're working on it when they come back. Larry's eyes widened. You serious? I don't see no other choice, she said. If they see nothing's changed, they'll shut us down for sure. So they worked. For hours. With shovels, buckets, and sheer stubbornness. The ground was wet and heavy, but they managed to clear a shallow trench along the side of the old tank. By sundown, both were covered in mud, their arms aching. Betty sat down on a tree stump, breathing hard. We can't fix this ourselves, she admitted finally. We're just digging holes at this point. Larry sat beside her. Yeah, but at least we're trying. Betty nodded slowly. That's what the man on the phone said. So we're trying. That night, Betty made dinner, beans and cornbread. The same meal she'd cooked hundreds of times before. Larry ate quietly, the sound of the fork scraping the plate filling the silence. You think the lawyer'll help for real? He asked. I don't know, Betty said honestly. But if he don't, I don't know what we'll do. Maybe we can sell that old truck out back. Larry frowned. That truck don't even run. I know, she said softly, but maybe somebody'll buy it for parts. They ate in silence again. When dinner was over, Betty went to her room and pulled out an old metal box from under the bed. Inside were a few crumpled bills, some receipts, and an envelope marked donation money. She hesitated, then opened it. Inside was $380, what was left from people who had sent small cash donations months ago, back when Patrick's videos were still making rounds. She kept it in case of emergencies. And this, she thought, was definitely an emergency. She counted twice, then folded it back into the envelope. It ain't much, she whispered to herself, but it's a start. The next morning, Betty called the only plumber in the county who hadn't hung up on her yet, a man named Donnie Carter. Donnie, she said, you've worked on our place before. You know what kind of shape it's in. We got a letter from the state saying we got 30 days to fix the septic or get out. Donnie sighed. Yeah, I heard about that. Word travels fast round here. You think you could come take a look? Maybe tell him we're making progress. Betty, he said, I can look, sure, but them tanks cost money to replace. Real money. You got at least $2,000 to start. Betty swallowed hard. I got about 400. He paused. 400 won't touch it. But I'll tell you what, I'll come out there tomorrow and see what I can do. Maybe we can patch something to buy you time. Thank you, Donnie, she said, her voice thick with relief. You don't know how much that means. Don't thank me yet, he replied. Let's see what we're dealing with first. That night, as Betty sat on the porch again, she could hear the crickets and the faint rumble of thunder in the distance. Larry joined her, holding 2 cups of instant coffee. He handed one to her. You think we'll be okay? Betty stared out into the dark. I don't know, Larry, but I ain't letting them take our home without a fight. He nodded. You always been the fighter. Betty smiled weakly. Yeah, but even fighters get tired. Larry looked out toward the road. You think folks online will find out about this? They already have, Betty said. You know how it goes. Someone always posts something before the truth even gets out. She was right. Somewhere, someone was already typing a Facebook post about the Whittakers losing their home. The story would spread, comments would pour in, and the internet would once again debate the family's worth. But Betty didn't have time for all that. She wasn't thinking about cameras or sympathy anymore. She was thinking about keeping a roof over her brother's head, about the only home they'd ever known. As the night settled around them, she whispered to herself, Day 2 down, 28 to go. If you were in Betty's place, facing a 30-day deadline and no help in sight, what would you do first? Do you think the state is doing its job? Or is it failing one of America's most vulnerable families? Comment your thoughts below. The morning Donnie came. The sun broke through the fog like a promise Betty wasn't sure she believed. His white truck rattled up the narrow dirt drive, the back filled with hoses, PVC pipes, and a toolbox that looked older than her house. Betty stood on the porch, wiping her hands on her apron, while Larry sat on the steps, sipping coffee from a cracked mug. "Morning," Donnie said as he climbed out, slamming the truck door behind him. He adjusted his ball cap and gave Betty a small smile. "Heard you got yourself in a pickle with the state." "More like a jar full of M," Betty replied. "Thanks for coming out." Donnie walked around the house, the gravel crunching under his boots. He stopped near the back, where the septic lid sat buried under a patch of sunken ground. The smell hit almost immediately, earthy and sour, with that faint, unmistakable stench of something gone wrong. "Yeah," Donnie said, crouching down. "This thing's backed up for sure. You got groundwater leaking in, and that old pipe looks like it's cracked. Could have been like this for years." Betty crossed her arms. "We didn't have the money to get it fixed before. Kept pouring bleach down there, hoping it'd hold out." Donnie shook his head. "Bleach ain't fixing nothing, Betty. It's just killing what's already trying to work down there." Larry frowned. "So what's the damage?" Donnie stood, brushing the dirt from his knees. "Best case, patch job, maybe $1,200 if I can find used parts. Worst case, full replacement, and that's $5,000 easy." Betty felt her stomach drop. 5,000. Yeah, that's materials and labor. And that's me giving you a deal. She exhaled slowly. "Donnie, I don't even got half that." He scratched the back of his neck. "I know. That's why I'm thinking maybe I can rig something temporary. Keep the inspector happy long enough for you to figure something else out." Betty nodded slowly. "That'd mean the world." Donnie gave a sympathetic smile. "You always been good people. Let me see what I can do." While Donnie worked, Betty and Larry stood by the fence, watching. The sound of shoveling mixed with the low hum of cicadas. Betty's mind wasn't quiet, though. It kept circling back to one thing: 30 days. She couldn't stop counting. Day 1, shock. Day 2, panic. Day 3, begging for help. Day 4, work begins, but the fear lingers. She was halfway through that thought when she noticed a car pulling up the road, a dark blue sedan she didn't recognize. The tires crunched against the gravel as it came to a slow stop in front of the house. A woman stepped out, clipboard in hand, wearing a crisp navy jacket with a state seal embroidered on the chest. Betty's heart sank. "Good morning," the woman said, her tone polite but official. "I'm with the Department of Health and Human Resources. My name's Ms. Caldwell. Are you Mrs. Whittaker?" Betty wiped her hands. "That's me. I'm here for a welfare and property follow-up. Shouldn't take long." Larry shifted uneasily beside her. "You come to kick us out already?" Miss Caldwell gave a thin smile. "No, sir. Not today. I'm just here to document conditions and verify that you received notice of the 30-day order." Betty held up the folded letter. "Got it right here. We're working on it." Caldwell nodded. "That's good to hear. May I take a look around?" Donnie stepped forward, wiping his hands on a rag. "Ma'am, I'm the plumber. I've already started on the repairs. System's old, but I think I can get her running again before the month's up." Ms. Caldwell scribbled something on her clipboard. "Excellent. The department will need a receipt or a contractor statement once work is complete." She walked around, snapping photos of the ground, the house, and even the old outhouse that hadn't been used in years. Betty followed her nervously, trying to gauge her expression. When they reached the porch again, Caldwell turned. "You've made progress. That's good. But I have to be honest. Even with repairs, the house itself may still be flagged for safety concerns. Have you considered relocation?" Betty's jaw tightened. "No, ma'am. We ain't leaving." Caldwell sighed. "I understand, Mrs. Whittaker, but if the state determines it's unsafe..." Betty cut her off. "We've lived here 50 years. Ain't nothing unsafe about it. The woman gave a sympathetic look, but didn't argue. I'll file my report, she said finally. You'll hear from us in a week. Where a car disappeared down the road, Betty leaned against the railing, her legs shaking. Lord have mercy, she whispered. Donnie looked up from the trench. She give you a hard time? She's just doing her job, Betty said quietly. But her job might be what gets us thrown out. That night, the phone rang. Betty almost didn't answer, but when she did, a familiar voice came through, soft, careful. Hey, Betty, it's Eric. She froze. Eric who? Eric Carroll. I know we haven't talked in a while, but I heard what's happening. Folks been sending me messages about the letter. Betty exhaled slowly. Eric, I don't know what to say. It's been a lot. I can imagine, he said. Listen, I just wanted to check in. I know things got messy before. All the online stuff, the videos, the stories, but I want you to know I'm still trying to help however I can. Betty hesitated. I don't want no more cameras, Eric. No cameras, he said quickly. I promise. Just talking. I got some folks reaching out asking how they can help. Maybe we can organize something, a fundraiser, donations, whatever you're comfortable with. Betty closed her eyes. I don't know, Eric. Last time folks helped, we ended up worse off. I get that, he said. But not everyone's out to use you, Betty. Some people really care. If we can raise enough to fix that septic, maybe even get some repairs done, it could keep the state off your back. She stayed silent for a long moment. You'd really do that? I would, but only if you want me to. Betty's voice softened. Let me think on it. I don't trust much anymore. I understand, Eric said. You take your time. Just know I'm here if you need me. When she hung up, Larry was standing in the doorway. That Eric? Yeah. What did he want? Says he wants to help. Larry scoffed. Last time help showed up, it came with a camera crew. Betty looked down at her hands. I know, but maybe this time's different. By day 7, Donnie had managed to get the system patched enough to stop the overflow. He showed Betty where the pipe had cracked, explaining the temporary fix. It ain't pretty, he said, but it'll pass inspection for now. Just don't run too much water at once. Betty handed him the envelope of cash, the last of what she had. It's all I can give you right now. Donnie waved his hand. You pay me when you can. I ain't worried about it. Tears welled in her eyes. Bless you, Donnie. He nodded and climbed back into his truck. You hang in there, Betty. I'll write up a statement for that inspector. Tell him you're making good progress. As the truck disappeared down the road, Betty felt the first flicker of hope in days. But it was short-lived. That night, someone sent her a message through a friend's Facebook account. A screenshot of a post from a page she didn't recognize. Breaking, Whittaker family given 30 days to leave their home. State investigation ongoing. Hundreds of comments. Thousands of reactions. People arguing, speculating, mocking. Larry read over her shoulder. They act like they know us. Betty's lip trembled. They don't know nothing. Not a damn thing. The worst part was that the post mentioned the septic repairs, something only a handful of people knew about. Someone had leaked it. Betty slammed the phone shut. I'm done talking to people, she said. No more calls. No more posts. If they want to watch us fall apart, they can do it from far away. By day 10, the house was quieter than ever. Betty barely spoke. Larry kept busy fixing the porch steps, even though they didn't need fixing. It was easier than thinking about the letter on the fridge, ticking down the days. Then late that afternoon, a white SUV pulled up. Not the state, not a neighbor. It was Eric. Betty stepped out onto the porch, crossing her arms. You said no cameras. He raised his hands. No cameras. I swear. Just me. He walked up, looking genuinely worried. I brought some groceries and a little cash some folks wanted me to pass along. They've been asking how you're doing, Betty. They care. She studied him for a long moment before taking the grocery bag. Thank you. He nodded. I ain't here to stir up trouble. Just to help. Larry stepped onto the porch. Then you can help by making sure they stop talking about us online. Eric sighed. I wish I could, but you know how the internet is. Once a story's out, it's out. Betty looked away. Then maybe it's time for us to disappear. Eric frowned. Don't say that. I mean it, she said. All these years, people treating us like we're a story instead of family. I'm tired, Eric. Real tired. He didn't argue. He just said softly, I get it, but don't give up yet. We still got time. When he left, Betty stood on the porch long after the sound of his car faded. The air smelled of rain again, and thunder rolled in the distance. She whispered to herself, 20 days left. But for the first time, it wasn't fear she felt, it was determination. They might have 30 days. They might have no money. They might have the world watching and waiting for them to fail. But Betty Whittaker wasn't done fighting. Not yet. If you were in Eric's position, would you go public to raise funds, even knowing how harsh the internet can be? Or should Betty keep everything private until the state decides? Comment what you would do. The rain didn't stop for 3 days. It came down hard, turning the dirt road into a slick, muddy river and washing away most of the progress Donnie had made on the yard. Betty stood at the window, arms crossed, watching the puddles form around the septic line again. Every drop felt like another second slipping away. 24 days gone. 6 left. Larry sat at the kitchen table, sharpening a pocket knife with slow, deliberate strokes. We should call that lady again, he said without looking up. The one from the state. See what she's saying now. Betty didn't move. Ain't no use. If they was going to help, they would have by now. Larry stopped sharpening and looked at her. You don't believe that. She sighed, turning from the window. I don't know what I believe anymore. Every time I think someone's coming to help, it turns into another camera, another promise, another lie. He set the knife down and leaned back in his chair. Eric seemed honest. Maybe, she admitted, but honest don't fix septic tanks. That afternoon, the mail came, soggy from the rain, tucked inside the box like an afterthought. Betty sorted through the envelopes. 2 bills, a church flyer, and one official-looking letter stamped with the state seal. Her stomach turned. She tore it open with shaking hands. Notice of inspection. Final evaluation date. Monday, August 5th. Failure to comply will result in relocation order. Betty read the words twice, her heart pounding louder with each line. Monday, she whispered. That's 4 days. Larry stood up. What's it say? She handed it to him. They're coming back. He read it, jaw tightening. Well, they better bring boots. Yard's not fit for walking. Betty sank into a chair, rubbing her forehead. Donnie said he'd send the paperwork about the patch. Maybe that'll buy us time. Larry nodded. If the mud don't swallow it first. 2 days later, Donnie returned, his truck tires spitting mud as he pulled up. He stepped out holding a manila envelope and a tired smile. Got the statement for you, he said. Says I repaired and stabilized the line. Might not fool a big city inspector, but it'll make the locals think twice before pushing eviction. Betty took the paper like it was gold. Donnie, I don't know how to thank you. He shrugged. Just promise me why I'll keep fighting. I seen families lose everything to that department. Don't let him push you out easy. She nodded. I won't. As he turned to leave, Betty asked quietly, You think we'll make it? Donnie paused, hand on his truck door. You're tougher than most, Betty. But even tough folks need someone in their corner. You got anyone left? Betty looked at Larry, then back at Donnie. Just us. He sighed. Then that's who you fight for. That night, the phone rang again, Eric's number. Betty hesitated, but answered. Betty, I just wanted to check in, he said. I saw the new notice going around online. People are worried. Some are askin how they can send help directly to you. She rubbed her temple. I don't want no more posts, Eric. No more Facebook pages. Every time someone helps, it just turns into people calling us names. I get that, he said softly. But listen, some of those people really care. One woman sent $200 through the church last night. She said, "Tell Betty she ain't alone." Betty's eyes filled with tears. Someone really said that. They did, Eric said. And more want to. We just need a way to get it to you. No middlemen, no lies. Straight to your mailbox. She was quiet for a long moment. You can post the address. But don't say nothing about the inspection. Don't make it a circus. I promise, he said. Just telling the truth, that you need help, and time's running out. When they hung up, Betty sat for a while in silence. Maybe, just maybe, this time will be different. By Sunday night, the letter Eric posted had made the rounds, but to Betty's surprise, it wasn't cruel. People shared it with words of support, not mockery. Comments flooded in, "Praying for you, Betty. Wish I could do more. You're stronger than most of us." Small envelopes began to arrive the next day, a few with cash, some with handwritten notes. Betty held one close and read it aloud to Larry. "Dear Betty, I saw your story online. My family went through something similar. Please don't give up. You've got people all over the country rooting for you." Larry smiled. "Guess folks ain't all bad." "No," Betty said softly, tears falling. "Not all of them." Monday came fast. Too fast. The sky was gray again, the ground slick from another night of rain. Betty stood outside, hair pulled back, letter from Donnie in her hand. Larry waited beside her, holding a thermos of coffee. At 9:15, the state car pulled up. It wasn't Ms. Caldwell this time. It was a man, mid-40s, with a clipboard and a neutral expression. "Mrs. Whittaker?" he said. "Yes, sir." "I'm here for the final evaluation. I understand there have been repairs made." Betty handed him Donnie's statement. "Yes, sir. Fixed and stabilized." He read it, then walked the property, taking photos, jotting notes. When he reached the back, he paused, tapping his pen against the clipboard. "This area is still soft," he said. "It rained all week," Betty replied. "Ain't much I can do about that." He nodded. Understood. After 10 long minutes, he returned to the porch. "Mrs. Whittaker, I can't make the final call today," he said, "but I'll recommend an extension. 30 more days to finalize repairs. You've clearly made effort, and that counts for something." Betty covered her mouth, trying not to cry. "Thank you, sir." He gave a small smile. "Don't thank me yet. Just keep at it." When the car disappeared down the road, Betty let out a long, shaking breath. Larry hooped softly beside her, grinning ear to ear. 30 more days, sis. We did it." Betty nodded, smiling through tears. "Yeah, 30 more days." But deep down, she knew this wasn't over. It never really would be. The fight wasn't just with the state. It was with time, money, and the cruel way the world sometimes forgets people like them. Still, as the clouds broke and sunlight spilled across the muddy yard, Betty felt something she hadn't in weeks. Hope. Real, stubborn, mountain-born hope. She turned to Larry. "Let's get back to work." And for the first time since the letter arrived, her voice didn't tremble when she said it. "If you were given just 30 more days to save your home, how would you use them? Do you think the Whittakers will finally catch a break? Or is this just another uphill fight?" Share your thoughts and send a message of support for Betty and Larry below. Thank you for watching this video. Click here to watch another video that might interest you.